My Patreon member's current terminal subclade is I-BY219979, which dates approximately to the Viking Age around 1013 CE according to family tree DNA age estimates. His earliest known patrilineal ancestor comes from Berwick-upon-Tweed in northern England. Even though the name is partially cut off in the following map, Berwick-upon-Tweed is in northeastern England along the North Sea coast, just slightly south of the border with Scotland. My Patreon member's closest ancient DNA connection is pretty distant, going all the way back to the Bronze Age with the I-BY1482 subclade. He shares this branch with LE5 in the family tree DNA database, who lived in Cambridgeshire, England during the early Middle Ages. He was most likely affiliated with the ancient Germanic tribe known as the Angles, and he is mentioned in the 2022 study, The Anglo-Saxon Migration and the Formation of the Early English Gene Pool. Having an ancient DNA connection with an Angle and having an earliest known patrilineal origin in Northumbria, a region known to have been settled by the Angles, I have to admit at first I thought that my Patreon members' patrilineal forefathers entered the region with the Angles. But as you'll see in the rest of the video, I now believe that they entered the region with the Danish Vikings. The first piece of compelling evidence is the branching. I don't see any subclades that date to the migration period, but rather we have 3 Viking Age subclades, all dating within a short amount of time from each other, alluding to a proficient patrilineal ancestor during this time period. Another piece of compelling evidence is the fact that he has a Y67 genetic distance of 4 match with an individual that claims Denmark for the earliest known patrilineal country of origin. Just to give you a little context regarding this match, his closest subclade match thus far that he shares the I-BY219979 branch with, that dates to the Viking Age, also has a genetic distance of 4 to him at Y67. So I feel getting this individual upgraded to Big Y700 should be priority number 1. So even though historically the Norse Vikings from Norway had a greater influence in Scotland overall, this STR match of my Patreon member claiming Denmark for the earliest known patrilineal country of origin leads me to conclude that his forefather was a Danish Viking and not a Norse Viking. Besides this one promising lead at Y67, I don't see any other promising leads amongst his STR matches. I don't see anybody that might create a more recent in time branch with him than his Viking Age subclade. His closest match thus far in the family tree DNA database shares the I-BY219979 branch with him, and this individual claims Eyemouth, Scotland for the earliest known patrilineal origin. In the following map, you can see just how close Eyemouth is to Berwick-upon-Tweed, just around 9 miles away. Furthermore, he has another Viking Age match that lists Edinburgh, Scotland for the earliest known patrilineal origin. And this is only around 60 miles away from Berwick-upon-Tweed. I have to admit that one issue that troubled me with my theory regarding his patrilineal forefathers being Danish Vikings is that the Danes were not known to have settled in that region of northeastern England and southeastern Scotland. They were known to have settled farther down south in the kingdom of Jorvik and the Danelaw. That being said, though, I did find 2 historical examples of Danish Vikings fighting in that region. In 993 CE, Danish Vikings, under the leadership of the King of Denmark, Sweyn Forkbeard, captured Bamberg Castle. And Bamberg Castle is only around 19 miles away from my Patreon member's earliest known patrilineal location in Berwick-upon-Tweed. In 875 CE, Danish Vikings, under the leadership of Thorstein, won the Battle of Dollar in Scotland. Dollar, Scotland is only around 12 miles east of Stirling. These 2 Danish Viking Age battles are plotted on the following map as red X's, and the black marks represent the earliest known patrilineal locations for my Patreon member and 2 of his Viking Age matches. So I feel that this common Danish patrilineal ancestor could have entered that region at either battle or somewhere in between along the North Sea coastline. Lastly, I want to talk about some pertinent findings from the recently released preprint Steppe Ancestry in Western Eurasia and the Spread of the Germanic Languages. In that preprint, there was a lot of interesting information regarding the origins of the Anglo-Saxons and the Danes. Interestingly, both the Anglo-Saxons and the Danes belong to the southern Scandinavian cluster, represented by the dark green ancient DNA locations in the following maps. So they share a common root heritage at some point in the past. And it's interesting to see how this southern Scandinavian cluster not only spread to England and the Netherlands during the migration period, but all around Denmark and Sweden as well during the Viking Age. This helps explain how he could have a Bronze Age connection to LE5, but also be a descendant of a Danish Viking. To quote the preprint, quote, "By the Viking Age, we detect Eastern Scandinavian and Western Scandinavian ancestries across Britain and its islands, representing Viking migrations from Sweden and Norway. Although migration from Denmark is likely during this period, the close relation between the Anglo-Saxons and the Danish Vikings limits our ability to detect this migration." End quote. Thanks for watching.